Hoy en Irlanda no tienen clase, es la fiesta nacional, en honor a San Patricio. Y nosotros, para celebrarlo de alguna manera, pues vamos a solidarizarnos con los irlandeses, contando con la gran suerte de que tenemos dos compañeros de Irlanda aquí entre nosotros, ¿no? Ya los conocéis, os ha dado clases en sexto, supongo, o en quinto, por ahí, el profesor Donald y el profesor Darra. Después os diré un poquito más de ellos. Vamos a hacer como una sesión dividida en dos partes. La primera parte, el profesor Donald nos va a hablar de un poquito de la historia de Irlanda y cómo San Patricio, que es el patrono, pues introdujo el cristianismo en Irlanda. Por eso lo organizamos también desde el Departamento de Religión, pero en el fondo es historia. Tradiciones, leyendas, costumbres asociadas con una época del pasado en el que el cristianismo llegó a Irlanda y actualmente constituye uno de los signos de identidad de este pueblo, del pueblo irlandés. Son muy religiosos y vamos a ver un poquito de dónde viene esto. Tal. Y después, la segunda parte, nos van a tocar, los dos son excelentes músicos, canciones típicas irlandesas del folclore de Irlanda. Y lo escucharemos de esa manera. Bueno, pues para empezar, el profesor Donald, sabéis que ya lleva muchos años entre nosotros, es irlandés y está afincado aquí en Santiago, está casado con una gallega y ha sido vuestro profesor de inglés, también es músico y muy bueno y nos va a hablar de todas estas cosas, ¿no? El otro compañero es el profesor Darra, también es profesor de inglés, es también músico, no sé si lo sabéis, incluso tiene discos, ha tocado en Australia, ha tocado en Londres y cositas por ahí que yo ni lo sabía, pero ahora quedé alucinado con todas estas cosas y tenemos entre nosotros verdaderos artistas y casi para nosotros es un honor poderlos escuchar. Y continúan hoy tocando por aquí, en algunos locales y zonas de Santiago. También está afincado entre nosotros, está casado también con una gallega y vive aquí y es profesor del colegio. Así que no os quiero comer más tiempo, porque yo tengo muchísimas ganas de escuchar esto y después oír las canciones. Así que el profesor Donna, por favor, cuando usted quiera, le cedemos la palabra. Una cosita solamente. Esa hoja que tenéis ahí, podéis ir apuntando, resolviendo esas preguntas a medida que el profesor va explicando. Al final, yo os lo voy a valorar, mi asignatura. Los que tenéis libreta lo pegáis y si no hacéis un escaneado o bien una foto con la cámara del ordenador y me lo incluís en los apuntes del ordenador y os lo valoro, os doy puntos por ello, ¿vale? Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Mr. Sanabria. Thank you very much. Good meal machgut. Agus lá féile páige gwibh galéir, which is Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. And it's good to see your faces again after 2 years. I'm not sure if it's good for you to see my face, but it's good for me to see your face. And yes, I'm going to speak in English for the next half an hour, okay? So enjoy it. Today we're going to talk about St. Patrick's Day. Now, I know many of you were in Ireland. They went in schools of Ireland for 7 weeks, which feels like about 10 years ago, but it was probably like 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. So hands up, who was in Ireland for those 7 weeks? Okay, a few of you, quite a few of you, okay. And hands up, who has been to Ireland before? Okay, not so many of you, but a few. Okay, very good. So I'm going to tell you a few things today about, first of all, about why we celebrate today as the Day of Ireland, St. Patrick's Day. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Ireland in general, okay? So today is the 17th of March. We celebrate today because today is the day that St. Patrick died. So I'm just going to click on and explain a little bit. We're going to talk about the origins of St. Patrick. We're going to talk about the legacy of St. Patrick, okay, what he left behind after he died and why we still celebrate him. And then we're going to talk a little bit about St. Patrick's Day Festival in Ireland, how we celebrate it, and how it's celebrated around the world in various different cities and countries. Okay, so we're going to start off with the origins of St. Patrick, okay? St. Patrick, you might think, being an Irish saint, you might think he was Irish. But funnily enough, he wasn't Irish. So St. Patrick was born, according to myth and legend, in Great Britain. Okay, now, because it's so many years ago, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it was Britain in Roman times. Okay, so England, as we know it today, didn't exist. There was Scotland, England, Wales. They were all sort of joined together under Roman law, we'll say. And then Scotland and Ireland were a little bit out of that. Okay, there was a massive wall in the north of England called Hadrian's Wall. Now, Hadrian was originally a Spanish or a Hispanic Roman. And he built this massive wall to separate the barbarians or the Celts from the north of England, which we know as Scotland today. And St. Patrick comes from, some people say he came from Scotland, some people say he came from Cumbria in the north of England, and more people say he came from the coast of Wales. Really, we don't know, because it's so many years ago, okay? But we imagine it's somewhere along the coast. Most people tend to think it's from Wales, okay? So he was British, St. Patrick, and his father was a Roman aristocrat, okay? And at the age of 16, a terrible thing happened to St. Patrick. Well, he wasn't St. Patrick then, he was just Patricus, or whatever the Roman for Patrick was, okay? So at 16 years of age, a little bit older than you guys, he was wandering around the hills of Wales, and these evil pirates came from Ireland, okay? And these pirates kidnapped him, okay? And they took him, and they brought him on a boat all the way across the Irish Sea to the land of Ireland, the mystical land of Ireland. And there, they weren't particularly nice to him. They enslaved him, so he became a slave, okay? Which is not very nice. And in those days, it was even worse, I imagine. So they made him look after animals, particularly sheep, okay? And they put him on a hillside. And he had to live with the sheep and the pigs, which isn't very nice, is it? It's not very clean at all. That's where he had to live, and he had to make a little house for himself or a home for himself there. And he was a slave, so it was a horrible existence. And he lived like that for 6 years. Now, 6 days would be horrendous, but 6 years? And the man was on his own. Well, he was only a boy, he was only 16, okay? And so, while he was on the mountainside, as the story goes, God appeared to him, okay? Or he found his religion, he found faith. And so he started to pray. Because in those days in Ireland, there was no Christianity, right? There was no Catholicism or Protestantism or Christianity at all, okay? They worshipped pagan Celtic gods, the god of the sun and things like that, okay? And so he started worshipping because he came from Christianized Britain, if you like. So he started really having a faith in God. And then one day he had a dream. And this is after this is when he went over when he was 16, so he must have been about 22. I think it was 6 years later, okay? And he had a dream, and the dream said, escape from your captors and go to the coast, a place called County Wicklow. So he did. He escaped from the pigs and the sheep and the captors, and he made his way to County Wicklow, to the coast, just south of Dublin. And in the dream that he had, it said, you're going to find a boat waiting for you that'll take you home. So he did. He found a boat. And after many days sailing, he got back to Britain. But of course, he didn't know where he was in Britain. And it took him, the legend says it took him 28 days, which is a month, to get from the coast to his homeland, where he was from. So he got there, and his family was very happy to see Patrick back home again after 6 years. And he started to live a normal life again. But he had another dream. And this dream was the people of Ireland calling him back, saying, come back to Ireland, come back to Ireland. And it was a dream, and it said, come and tell us about your religion, come and convert us to Christianity. So, being an obedient servant as he was, he said, I'll go back to Ireland. But first he became a priest. You know what a priest is? People who say mass with the collar, you know, a priest. He became a priest, and he lived for a few years in Britain being a priest, and then he went to France. So he was an intelligent chap. So he went to France, and he learned French and Latin, and, well, they spoke Latin in those days, of course. So, and then he was ordained a priest, and then he got up where you go from a priest to eventually to become a bishop. So then he was Bishop Patrick. And then he kept having these dreams about these Irish people calling him back to Ireland. So he said, right, that's it, I'm going back to Ireland. And he did. He went back to Ireland. Now, this is many, many years later. He's got a big grey beard at this stage, okay? So he's gone back to Ireland, and he converts the Irish people to Christianity. How does he do it? How do you tell these people who are worshipping the sun and all of these different Celtic gods, how do you convert them to Christianity? Well, he found this little, you see this little symbol I have here, the shamrock. You guys know it as a treble, okay? Now, you would think in Santiago, when you go into a field and you see a little treble, as you call them in Spanish, that's actually called a clover, okay? And that plant exists in many, many, many different countries. But there is a special plant which is autochthonous to Ireland that exists, and that's called the shamrock. And it's completely different to the treble, as you guys call it, the clover. You know, the four-leaf clover, and everybody says that's great luck, and it's really good luck to have a four-leaf clover. Well, the shamrock is a different plant, and it only exists on the island of Ireland, okay? And it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little plant. And I'll show you an example of it in a second. And so he got the shamrock, and he tried to explain. Now, if you know about Christianity, you know there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they all exist in one. And he was trying to explain all this. How do you explain that to people? So he got the shamrock, and he explained that it's all part of the same plant, okay, the three leaves in the same one. So that's how he explained Christianity. And little by little, he converted the Irish people to Christianity, okay? So he became a bishop, and when you're a bishop, you can ordain priests. You can get more priests. So he got very influential people and made them priests, basically. So just to recap on that, he was born in the 4th century AD, Anno Domini, in Britain. His first contact with Ireland was at the age of 16 when he was kidnapped and taken there to Ireland. Travels to Britain, travels to France. He comes back to Ireland as a Christian priest and then a bishop and ordains the people. And that's how Christianity was brought to Ireland originally. Okay, so that's how, because just to give you a little historical lesson, the Romans never actually got to Ireland. I mean, they might have traveled there, one or two of them, but they didn't go in their battalions, okay? So they never really got to Scotland, and they never really got to Ireland. So there was no Christianity brought by the Romans. Now, Ireland in Roman times was known as Hibernia, which means the land of winter. Okay, so if you ever go to Ireland in winter, you'll know why it's called the land of winter. Okay, so anyway, so that brings us to the end of the story of St. Patrick, of his origins. Okay, and he died on the 17th of March, which is today, and that's why we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, in the year 460 AD, according to the records that we have. Okay, so now you know a little bit more about St. Patrick. So let's talk a little bit about his legacy. You know what a legacy is? A legacy is something you leave behind when you're gone, okay? And if we look here, he gave Ireland the national symbol. Ireland has a few national symbols. The harp is one of them. And the other one is the shamrock, okay? He banished the snakes from Ireland. Well, that's a nice little myth, that there was all these horrible, evil snakes in Ireland. And St. Patrick had a big stick, what we call a staff. And he put it into the ground and he went, away! And he banished all the snakes from the island of Ireland. But of course, if you know your geography, you'll know Ireland is an island and there were never probably snakes in Ireland. But it's a nice little story and a little parable there between the sins and the snakes and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that too much. He invented the Celtic cross. Okay, now if you look at the Celtic cross in the image there, you'll see that it has the traditional Christian cross, but it also has the little circle around it. What do you think that circle would represent? Anyone have an idea? There? The sun. Fantastic, Coral. Right. The sun, yes. Because pagans worshipped the sun, didn't they? That was one of their gods. So the circle there within the cross was how they translated that to the pagans. Okay, so it was a little bit of pagan gods and a little bit of Christianity. And put those together, and you have the Celtic crosses, which you will still see today all over Ireland and other countries. Now, he also taught Christianity through the Irish language, Gaeilge. Okay, we have two languages in Ireland, as you know. If you ever go to Ireland, on the road signs, you'll see first of all the sign in Irish, and second of all the sign in English. So if you're looking for Dublin, and you see something that says Balliaclia, and you'll think, what in the name of the God is that? But that means the town of the High King, Balliaclia, the town of the High King. And that's, Dublin comes from Duvlin, the black bird, which is the original Viking for it, okay? So there's lots of different history things going on here. But I'm not going to get into it today because we don't have time, unfortunately. So, he taught Christianity through Irish to the Irish people. Because if he spoke Latin to them, they weren't going to understand him, okay? So he spoke in Irish. He learned Irish and spoke it to them. And then he became eventually the patron saint of Ireland and of another country. I realized recently when I was looking up some information. Nigeria. Now, if you ever look at Nigeria play football in the World Cup, you'll notice they play in green and white. So that's white because St. Patrick is also the patron saint of Nigeria. And apparently the city of Murcia, I discovered this morning. So interesting stuff there. Right, so I'm going to continue on a little bit. And we're going to talk about St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. And Mr. Dara, feel free to interrupt at any point. Now, because I'm from the south of Ireland, from Cork, and Dara's from a beautiful town called Mullingar, which is up, I'm going to say north-central-ish. If you know
You're
where,
correct, about 80 kilometres to the west of Dublin.
Of Dublin, right. 80 kilometres to the west of Dublin is the wonderful town of Mullingar, where, who's from Mullingar? There's a few famous people.
Niall Horan from One Direction, that's about it right now.
Niall Horan from One Direction, wow.
And Michael O'Leary from Ryanair as well.
Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, he's from Mullingar as well. Jeez, so there's a few quid there for you. Right, so 17th of March, national holiday. Mass, that's when people go to church, in Ireland is celebrated in Irish on this day. And people try to speak cúpla focal, which is not a bad word. It actually means a few words of Irish. Cúpla focal as Gaeilge, okay, is a few words in Irish, right? Now, because as you might know or might not know, in Ireland, we have to do, you know, like you guys do Galician and Spanish, and well, here you do a million languages, but we do two languages. We do English and we do Irish all the way through school, okay, until we get to the Leaving Cert, which is second bachillerato. So that is when you're 17, 18 years old, and that's when we stop learning Irish if we want to. Now, there are parades in every town and city. Obviously, with coronavirus, I'm not sure how many parades there are at the moment, but they're certainly starting up again in Ireland. So you go to your local village, your local town, your local city, and there's lots of different parades. It's a bit like Carnival in Spain or in Galicia. So, and then, of course, every Irish person must wear a shamrock, and because I'm not in Ireland and I can't find any shamrock, I've got a little shamrock here. Yeah. And also, of course, we have to wear green. That's why I'm wearing green trousers today. I took them out for a walk. Now, so we wear a little bit of green and a bit of shamrock also. Now I'm going to show you a little video, hopefully, if this computer doesn't collapse on me. I have it somewhere. Here we go. Show you a little video.
St. Patrick's Day, or Paddy's Day, is the Irish feast day, which celebrates none other than St. Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, who was around from 386 to 461 AD. The day is celebrated worldwide by the Irish, the Scottish, and increasingly by anybody who just wants to party and drink too much Guinness. The day has come to be associated with everything Irish, anything green and gold, shamrocks, and plain old good luck. The biggest celebrations in Ireland, outside Dublin, are in Downpatrick, where St. Patrick was buried following his death on March the 17th, 461 AD. The man himself is largely credited with converting Ireland from a pagan to a Christian nation. He also banished snakes from the island, driving them into the sea, although the snakes are probably a metaphor for the Druids. Many Irish people still wear a bunch of shamrock on this day, even presidents of the United States. Paddy's Day parades in Ireland date from the late 19th century, originating in the growing sense of nationalism of the period. In the mid-90s, a group called the St Patrick's Festival was set up by the government, with the aim to offer a national festival that promotes Ireland's sophisticated modern image. The 5 largest parades of recent years have been held in Dublin, New York City, Manchester, Montreal and Boston. The New York parade is generally regarded as the largest. Parades also take place in other cities, including London, Paris, Rome, Munich, Hong Kong, Copenhagen and Chicago, where they dye a stretch of the river emerald green. The Paddy's Day custom came to America in 1737. That was the first year St Patrick's Day was publicly celebrated in the US in Boston. One reason St Patrick's Day might have become so popular in the US and elsewhere is that it takes place just a few days before the first day of spring. So say goodbye to the winter blues and wear the green on St Patrick's Day.
Okay, so that was a little video there on how St. Patrick's Day is celebrated all around the world. How do we get out of here now is the question. Okay, so there we go. Right. So you saw there a little video of how they dye the river in Chicago. They dye it green because there's loads of Irish people all over the world. In fact, the Irish diaspora, as we call it, which is the people who are of Irish descent. So Ireland has a population of about 4.5, nearly 5 million now. But there's about 700 million descendants of Irish people around the world, okay? So Irish are a bit like the Galicians, you know, we travel everywhere. Everywhere you go, you'll find an Irish person and probably a Galician, you know. So we have lots of things in common. So there's loads of Irish. If you go to Boston and you go to Chicago, New York, you'll find many, many, many Irish or people of Irish descent, okay? So they dye the river green in honor of St. Patrick's Day, as you can see it today. So if you were in Chicago today, you would see them dyeing the river green, which is quite impressive. Probably not very healthy for the fish, but it's quite impressive. And there we can see the wife of the former president of the United States, Hillary Clinton, in Pittsburgh with their little shamrock. Okay, so there's an old photo from 1939 in New York. So this has been happening for a long, long, long time, guys, okay? And another one in Moscow. We won't mention much about Moscow today. Let's skip on there, and there is the Eiffel Tower, which is lit up green, and the Sydney Opera House is lit up green, and many monuments around the world are lit up green today or this evening for St. Patrick's Day. In fact, can you think of a famous monument in Galicia? Not the Cathedral of Santiago. Can you think of a Roman monument in Galicia? That's the one, the Hercules Tower in Coruña. Very good, we're on the ball today. The Hercules Tower in Coruña is actually lit up green as well. So if you go to Coruña today, which you probably won't, but if you did, you would see that it's lit up green this evening, which is really, really cool. Okay, so that's also for in honor of St. Patrick's Day and of Ireland. Okay, so we're a very tiny country, but we have presence around the world. And there's the Sydney Opera House as well, lit up green. Now, I'm just going to check how I'm doing for time. We're on the ball more or less. So, and there is Mr. Varadkar, the former Taoiseach, or President of Ireland, and Mr. Trump, you might recognize there also. That's in 2020. And there he is with his bowl of shamrock. Okay, so normally the Irish Taoiseach goes to the American president and presents him with a bowl of shamrock. I'm sure Mr. Trump was very happy. Now, so there's the videos we've already seen. And very quickly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Ireland. As I said, the population of Ireland is about 4.5 million, nearly 5 million now, I'd say, in the Republic of Ireland. You may or may not know that Ireland is split into 2 countries. Unfortunately, we have the Republic of Ireland, the 26 counties, and then we have 6 other counties, which I won't go into the reasons why, but our great friends, the British, have decided that it's part of Britain. You may know it as Ulster or as Northern Ireland. The capital of Ireland is Dublin. the real capital, of course, is Cork, where I'm from, but for political reasons, we'll say it's Dublin. And then the major cities, Dublin, obviously Cork, Galway, Limerick, Waterford and Wexford pretend to be cities as well. And then we have the 4 provinces of Ireland. Now, provinces in Ireland are actually the big ones, okay? We have little counties, 32 of them. And then we have 4 massive provinces, okay? And the orange one at the bottom there is Munster, where I'm from. The blue one is where Dara's from. Leinster, is that right? Am I right?
Correct and right, Mr. Craven.
Good stuff. And then we have the green one, which is Connacht. And then the yellow one at the top there is Ulster, or Northern Ireland. Part of it's Northern Ireland anyway. And then, so it's mentioned there, the 26 counties in the Republic and 6 counties in Northern Ireland. Now the Irish flag, which you can see here very proudly presented, has green, white and gold, or green, white and orange, depending on your wont. Now, I may have told you this when you were in 5th class or 6th class, but I'll tell you again anyway. The Irish flag represents 3 things. So the green here represents the people from the Republic of Ireland down south. And then the orange over here represents those guys up in the north, okay, the Northern Irish, we'll say. And then can you guess what the white represents? Peace, yes indeed, peace. It represents the peace in between. And thankfully nowadays, in 2022, nowadays we do have peace, or relative peace, in the north of Ireland. But for many, 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 many years, there was a lot of violence in the north of Ireland. Again, I'm not going to go into that today, okay? So that's a few little things about Ireland. Does anyone have any questions before I continue? Is everything clear? Good. Don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. Curiosity is a great thing. Now, again about Ireland. Céad Míle Fáilte, you can see up there. You probably read it as Siad Míle, I don't know what you'd read it as, but it's Céad Míle Fáilte, which means, Fáilte means welcome, bienvenido, and Céad Míle is 100,000, right? So it's 100,000 welcomes, Céad Míle Fáilte. And that is what Irish people say when you come to Ireland. That's a traditional greeting, okay? Here you might say something like encantado, and we might say something like Céad Míle Fáilte, right? Which means 100,000 welcomes. Now, Ireland has 2 official languages. I've already spoke about that, Irish and English. 2 national sports in Ireland, and the people who went to Ireland for schools of Ireland will have gone to places like Kilkenny and Carlow and Wexford and all these, and they're big, 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 big hurling counties where they play hurling. And then up where Dara's from, I'd say it's probably Gaelic football more than hurling, is it?
It's rugby all the way, unfortunately.
Rugby. That's not a national sport now. Right, so there's, we've got Gaelic football and we've got hurling, are the 2 national sports of Ireland. There's also camogie, which is the female version of hurling, okay? So the ladies' version of hurling, camogie. And then there's handball and there's all sorts of games. Anyway, if you ever go to Ireland, well worth going to one of these live games, okay? Beautiful sports. So, hurling, Gaelic football, we're also famous for normal football, as you'd call it. We call it soccer, which comes from association football, okay? Because football in Ireland is Gaelic football. And soccer is, like the Americans, is your, what you call football, okay? And then, right now we have a big rugby team. Well, we have for a long time now. One of the best teams in the world. Last time I checked, we were 3rd best in the world at rugby. And funnily enough, I just realised, was it yesterday or the day before, Spain are going to play against Ireland in rugby in Bordeaux. I'm going to try and get tickets if I can and travel over to watch it. It'd be nice to see Spain against Ireland. We might actually win. And also, and I would like to talk a bit more about this, but unfortunately, time is against us a little bit, isn't it? Music. Well, music is a massive part of being Irish. Okay? If you come from Ireland, then you could say that music is part of you and you're part of music. Okay? Growing up in Ireland, certainly for me, when I grew up, for me and my friends, we all played a musical instrument. Now, I don't mean played by going to classes and learning all the notes and all of these things that, you know, I don't mean like that. I just mean playing an instrument. So you go to a party when when you're 16, 17, 18, you go to a friend's house, everybody would have an instrument. Could be a drum, could be a guitar. You make a noise half the time. But everybody has some, you can either sing or you can play an instrument, where I come from. I imagine it's the same from...
Oh, it is, yeah. Completely. Yeah. In every corner.
Exactly, every corner.
There's a musician, there's a singer. Everybody has their party piece.
Exactly, because if not, you're nobody. You have to be able to play an instrument or defend yourself by singing, okay? So that's a big part of our culture in Ireland, the music. And we've got some famous musicians. U2, you might have heard of. For some reason in Spain, you seem to call them U2, I'm not sure why. But it's U2 in every other country in the world. And the Chieftains, who've played here in Santiago. Van Morrison has played here in Santiago. I don't think U2 have ever played in Santiago. But anyway. And many, many other famous musicians, okay, in Ireland. And if you do ever go to Ireland, there's live music everywhere. Even now in COVID times, people are beginning to play a lot more live music, okay? So wherever you go in Ireland, the first thing you'll hear is music, okay? It's a massive, massive thing. Now, that's kind of all. I don't know if you've got any more questions. I know Mr. Sanabria gave you like a questionnaire. I hope you've answered all those questions. Yeah. Okay, Dana? You should get them all right, anyway. How did he do it? Oh, you might have to study a little bit after this, eh? You might not have been paying full attention, okay? So, I think that's about enough of the chatting for now, okay? So I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. And Mr. Dara over here and myself are going to play you a few songs from Ireland, okay? A few songs from Ireland and maybe one from around the world as well. Okay? Thank you very much for listening, guys. You've been very good. Right. Okay, we're in tune. We're going to start off with the... is it right on?
It is.
It is right on. It's always right on. We're going to start off with a song by an artist called Christy Moore, a very famous Irish artist. It's, I suppose it's a love song, really. Okay, it's a nice little slow song. Just wait for the noise to stop there behind us.
It was written by a man who came from Donna's hometown, I think, no? Near enough.
Yeah, Jimmy McCarthy from Cork, yeah.
Cork.
So, we'll give it a go anyway. See how it sounds. I've ever seen, standing 16 runner to a doggy's white and green. True, you ride the horse so well, with hands light to the touch. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Ride on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Ride on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. without a trace behind. Run your claw along my guts one last time. I turn to face an empty space where you used to lie. I look for the spark that lights the night to a teardrop in my eye. Right on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Right on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Right on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Right on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to.
That song's
you.
about a horse, no?
Huh?
It's about a horse.
The horse.
It's about a horsey, that song, no?
Yeah, but a horse in love. A lovely horse. What's up now?
We'll try Star of the County Down.
Yes. Right. So this song is a song called "The Star of the County Down." So much more to say about it. Van Morrison does a nice little version of it, but this is our version. Hup ho. From Bridgetown in the county down, written boarding in last July. On a boarding green in the sweet Garline, it's just where she passed me by. She looks so sweet from her 2 bare feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Here I comes and now to shake myself to be sure to be standing there. From Punchy Bay to Derry came from Galway to our in town. Now made I sing like the sweet Garline and they met in the county down. I onward sped and I shook my head and I stared at the feeling fair. And no says I to the passer-by with the bed and the nut brown hair. And he smiled at me and he says to me, she's a gem of Ireland's crown. Young Rosie McCann from the banks of the Banshee, the star of the county down. From Banshee Bay to Derry came from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I'd seen like the sweet Garline that they met in the county down. There was never a kid since my dog could hear me gone. And fair and straight, it's in there to the church, and you know if I can. And a pipe will smoke, and a cuss sail yoke, and me plough, and me wrist turns brown. You were broken brave, and me on fireside, to the star of the county down. From Bunchy Way up to Derry Cave, the Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Darlene that they met in the county down. From Bunchy Way up to Derry Cave, the Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Darlene that they met in the county down. Adios, thank you. Would you ever do a song now, would you?
This is a Scottish folk song, but we stole it for ourselves. Black is the color of my true love's hair. Her lips are like some roses fair. She has the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands, and I love the ground whereon she stands. I love my love, and well she knows I love the ground whereon she goes. I wish the day it soon would come where she and I could be as one. I go to the Clyde, where I mourn and weep, for satisfied I can never be. I write her a letter, just a few short lines, and I suffer a death 1,000 times. Black is the color of my true love's hair. Her lips are like some roses fair. She has the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands, and I love the ground whereon she stands. I love the ground whereon she stands. Good morning.
Good stuff.
That's called Black is the Colour.
Very nice, very nice.
Yep, you've got Mad Lady and Me as I roved out, whatever you feel.
Yeah, that's for Mad Lady and Me, I suppose. And the season up, unfortunately. Right, this next song is a song from my home city of Cork. And it's called The Mad Lady and Me. Loads of time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just all the diggers up.
Blues, man.
I'll follow you.
walls and ruins, and these are its civic stones. I walked without a lover for my older bones. The sun was strong in going down. It was a dream like day. 'Twas there I saw the Trinity, and then I heard them say, she sang back, "Bye, Mama, and goodbye, Brother John. Fare you well, ye shining bells, and ring on, ring on." As she leaned to me much closer, and she hugged them all goodbye. At her mother she cried, "Don't go, my love, we all must by and by." Her drunken tongue said, "Leave her off, she'll drive us all crazy." As she turned around and she saw my face, and both of us was she sang back, "Bye, Mama, and goodbye, Brother John. Fare you well, ye shining bells, and ring on, ring on." I will up onto the limestone walls and down the ladder steps, while she threw herself into the lake with a splash of no regrets, and side-stroke swimming mid-stream, blowing kisses to the crowd, and everything was silent and the sky had not one cloud. She sang back, "Bye, Mama, goodbye, Brother John. Fare you well, ye shining bells, and ring on, ring on." We were swimming out in the sunset. We were swimming out to sea, swimming down by the opera house, the mad lady and me. We were swimming out in the sunset. We were swimming out to sea, swimming down by the opera house, the mad lady and me. Thank you. What have we got now?
Yeah, it's lovely. Find me plectrum. Oh, there it is.
I have another one here if you want.
No, it's grand. It's red.
I had this season up a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. What's up now? Nice. Banging to get in.
Yeah.
What's the next song, Mr. Dara?
As I roved out.
As I Rode Out, nice little song. Okay.
So many of these songs might sound a little bit sad, but there's a lot of sadness in the Irish people sometimes, no?
Weakness.
We're very happy when we play them, I tell you.
Yeah. Sad little songs, but beautiful little songs, no?
Yeah.
Would you not think? Right, this song is a song called As I Roved Out, and it's another little love song, I suppose. Doesn't quite end in love, but it starts in love. So you'll pick it up as we go along. Right. Who are you, my pretty fair maid? Who are you, me honey? And who are you, my pretty fair maid? Who are you, me honey? She answered me quite modestly, I am me mother's darling, with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day. And now will ya come to me mother's house when the moon was shining clearly? And now will ya come to me mother's house when the moon was shining clearly? I'll open the door and I'll let you in, and devil the one could hit us with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day-ho. And so I went to her house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly. And I went to her house in the middle of the night when the moon was shining clearly. As she opened the door and she let me in, and devil the one could hit us with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day. She took me horse by the bridle and the whip, she led him to the stable. She took me horse by the bridle and the whip, she led him to the stable. Said there's plenty of oats for a soldier's horse, so hit them if you're able with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day. She took me by the lily white hand and she led me to the table. She took me by the lily white hand and she led me to the table. Said there's plenty of wine for a soldier boy, oh drink it if you're able with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day-ho. And she got up, she made the bed, she made it nice and lazy. And she got up and she made the bed, made it nice and lazy. And then they laid her upon the bed. I said, lassie, are you able with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day-ho. And there we lay till the break of day, and the devil no one could hear us. And there we lay till the break of day, and the devil no one could hear us. And then they rode up on me clothes and said, lassie, I must leave you with my two-eye, faddle-diddle-da, di-dee, faddle-diddle-day-ho. And now when will you return again? And when will we get married? And now when will you return again? And when will we get matty. When broken shells make Christmas bells, we might well get married with my two-rider. Waddle-diddle-da, tidy, waddle-diddle-day. Oh, when broken shells make Christmas bells, we might well get married with my two-rider. Waddle-diddle-da, tidy, waddle-diddle-day. Oh, when my two-rider, waddle-diddle-da, tidy, waddle-diddle-day. Oh, when my two-rider, waddle-diddle-da, tidy, waddle-diddle-day. Thank you.
What was the name of that one again?
As I roved out.
As I Roved Out. That's a good one.
Nice little one. You got Spencer Hill happening there, have you?
We'll do it, yeah. This next song references the diaspora that Mr. Craven was talking about. It's called Spansel Hill. It's a place in County Clare there in the west of Ireland. See if I can remember this one. Last night as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by, me mind been bent on rambling, to Ireland I did fly. I stepped on board a vision and I followed with the will, till next I came to anchor at the cross near Spansel Hill. It was on the 23rd of June, the day before the fair, when Ireland's sons and daughters and friends assembled there. The young, the old, the brave and the bold, their duty to fulfill at the little church in Clooney, a mile from Spansel Hill. I went to see me neighbours, to see what they might say. The old ones, they were dead and gone, the young ones turning grey. I met the tailor Quigley, he's as bald as ever still. Sure, he used to make me breeches when I lived in Spansel Hill. Then I paid a flying visit to my first and only love. She's as fair as Annie Lily, as gentle as a dove. She threw her arms around me, saying, Dara, I love you still. She was Matt, the farmer's daughter, the pride of Spansel Hill. And I dreamt I hugged and kissed her, as in the days of yore. She said, Johnny, you're only joking, as many a time before. The cock, it crew in the morning, it crew both loud and shrill, and I awoke in Santiago, many miles from Spansel Hill.
Oh.
Up back, Kenny.
Lovely.
Got through it there now. That's the first time you've heard that in entirety.
Yeah, I tell you.
Yeah.
What have we got now?
Jeepers, we've got a
Wagon wheel.
wagon wheel written by somebody, some fella.
So look, there's 20 minutes left, so we'll get wagon wheel and maybe one more and then back home in Derry or something.
Yeah, sure.
Be nice.
Whatever you want to do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just afraid of the whole thing season up.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was getting at me there in one of them. And
It's cold now. It is cold.
Chords. It is cold, yeah. Right, guys, we're going to play 2 more songs maybe, okay? You're probably falling asleep at this stage. So I'm going to wake you up maybe with this one. This is, I was talking earlier about the Irish people around the world, yeah, when Irish people travel to different countries and the Irish diaspora, 700 million people. Well, they've also, as we traveled, I was talking about how Irish people were very musical, and we sort of brought our music and our traditions with us to different countries, a bit like we're doing today on Patrick's Day here, you know. And so when the Irish went to America, they brought Irish music, traditional music with them, and they influenced in turn what you know as American country music and bluegrass and folk music in America. So one of the most famous musicians of all time is a guy called Bob Dylan, and you might have heard of him. And Bob Dylan was highly influenced by, what are they called? The Clancy brothers, isn't it? Liam Clancy.
The Clancy brothers.
Clancy brothers.
Right, yeah.
And so he wrote many songs dedicated to the Irish people and with Irish music in them. So this is just an example of a Bob Dylan song. It's called, she's with a few Bob Dylan songs, but this one is called Wagon Wheel.
Yeah.
You might have heard of it. It's a nice little song. Hopefully I can remember the words now.
Yeah, and it's written in the style of the shape of the verses and choruses is very similar to what the Clancy brothers would have done in New York in the mid 20th century.
60s.
No?
Yeah, 1960s, 1970s sort of music, right?
So you'll get that flavour from this song here.
So it's called Wagon Wheel, and we'll see what we can do with it when I eventually work out what's going on. Well, heading down south to the land of the pines, thumbing my way in North Carolina, staring at the road, pray to God I see headlights. Well, I made it down the coast in 17 hours, picking me a bouquet of dogwood flowers, and I'm hoping for a rally I can see my baby tonight. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me now, yeah, rock me do. Oh, rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me now. Well, I'm heading to the country, out of country winter, and I'm headed come now, I play it again. Gotta get a move on, fit for the sun. Hear my baby calling my name, and I know that she's the only one. And if I die in rally, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, any way you feel. Hey, mama, rock me now, yeah, rock me do. Oh, rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me now, yeah, rock me do. got a feeling in a nice long tote. He's heading back to the Cumberland Gap, to Johnson City, Tennessee. And now I gotta get a move on, fit for the sun. Hear my baby calling my name, and I know that she's the only one. And if I die in rally, at least I will die free. So rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, anywhere you feel. Hey, mama, rock me now, yeah, rock me too. Oh, rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me too, yeah, rock me too. Oh, rock me, mama, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, mama, anywhere you feel. Hey, mama, rock me now, this time. Oh, rock me, mama, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, mama, like a southbound train. Hey, mama, rock me now, rock me do. Yep, got the words there. Anyway. It's not so, it was. Under 10 minutes to go.
Actually, one more will do, and then by the time we wrap up and back down, and
True, yeah. Right, guys, we're going to finish up with this last song now. An Irish song for Paddy's Day. And it's called Back Home in Derry. And this song is about the Irish who emigrated to Australia many years ago. And this is a funny story, these were Irish prisoners. So the English, or the British, came to Ireland and invaded Ireland and put many Irish people in captivity in prisons, okay? And there were so many Irish people in the jails, in the prisons, that there was overcrowding. So the British government decided, what are we going to do with all of these Irish prisoners, many of whom were innocent? And so they said, do you know what? We'll send them off to Australia. So they did. They put them in boats, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boats, and they sent them off, or ships, to Australia, which was then, back in those days, it was called Van Diemen's Land, okay? Demons as in demonio, right? The Van Diemen's Land it was called. And so they sent them off to Australia. And to this day, there's many Australian people with Irish surnames, okay? So they sent them off there, and most of them, a lot of them died on the way because they were tiny boats and the conditions were horrible, and millions of people died on the way to Australia. So this is a song about that. The song is that the chorus, you can feel free to sing it if you want it. It's I Wish I Was Back Home in Derry. The chorus is very simple, guys. It goes, oh, 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 I wish I was back home in Derry. I'll say it again in case you didn't get it. It's oh, 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 oh. You can do that, surely. I wish I was back home in Derry. So if you want to sing, if you're falling asleep and you want to sing,
play a C chord. Let them practice that one.
So
I want to try.
So it'll be oh, like that. Oh, oh, all right. I wish I was back home in Derry. That's how it goes. So, there's some great singers out there. I know that for a fact. So feel free to sing.
Yeah. You can be Irish now for the next few
minutes. Yeah, you can be Irish for the next 3.5 minutes. Right, so anyway, this is Back Home in Derry. My hand is seizing up from the cold, so I hope it's not going to have a little problem here. But if it does, Darragh will take over.
You'll be grand, Mr. Craven. Thanks very much, everybody, for listening to us today.
Yeah, guys, thanks a million for listening so patiently, everybody. And it was great to see you all again. And thank you. Right, so here we go with Back Home in Derry, anyway. 1803 and we sailed out to sea, out from the sweet town of Derry. Our torches rode high as the devil passed by, taking souls to Paddy's Beach White. 5 weeks out to sea, we were now 43. I had comrades we buried each morning. In our own time we were lost in a time of endless night without dawning. And oh, I wish I was back home in Derry again. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry.
Lovely.
Some the hell as our bow fought to swell, to dance like a mutt in the fireplace. White horses rode high as the devil passed by, taking souls to Paddy's Beach White. 5 weeks out to sea, we were now 43. Our comrades we buried each morning. In our own time we were lost in a time of endless night without dawning. And oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. Any man's land is a hell for a man to enter his whole life in slavery. Why the climate is raw and a gun makes the law, neither win nor rain or brave. 20 years have gone by and I've ended my bond. My comrades ghosts walk behind me. A rebel I came and I died the same. On the cold and of night you will find me. And oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. And oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. And oh, I wish I was back home in Derry last time. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias, chicos. Thank you very much. Gramila Mahmoud. I hope you enjoyed the spiel and a bit of music, and feel free to check out Irish music anytime and go to Ireland. It's a great place to go to, okay? Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody, okay? Bye, guys.
Lá féile, Patrick.